Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday. How are you doing today? I hope that you are doing well. How's everybody handling the time change? I don't know about you guys, but I am every time we change, we go back, we go forward, it takes me a little bit to get used to it. And I just wish they would pick one and we could all stick with it and just move on, because it sends me off, man. Just that 1 hour, it really, really does. So I don't know, maybe you handle it better, but I'm super sensitive to that kind of stuff. The light and the way the light, when the sun rises and the sun sets. So yeah, for me, I just want one time, and let's just go with that. But I hope everybody is doing really good. I love Wednesdays. I love doing my show. I have a really interesting guest today, Purpose Aizenstat. He's an author, and his book is titled The Imagination Matrix: How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. And he's going to join me in just a couple of minutes. And you guys know, who listens to me on the regular, how much I talk about creativity. So it's really exciting. I actually finished his book early this morning, so I'm excited to talk to him. If you are tuning into my show for the first time, welcome. I am so grateful that you're here. Just so you know, we do record the show live, and if you like the show and it resonates with you and you want to check out some of my other shows with my other guests, you can always find that on Om Times Radio in the archives. All the shows are listed, and you can listen to them anytime you like, or you can go to my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com, and I list all the shows up on the podcast section on my website, so you can listen at your leisure. And I really hope that you do enjoy the show and you keep coming back. To my regulars, thank you so much. I love that you keep coming back. It means the world to me. And a little bit about me for those who are tuning in for the first time. I am also an author. I am a photographer, and I'm an artist. So like I said, I am creative. And I have a book called Postcards to the Universe: Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And I photographed all the pictures in the book. There's 30 manifesting stories along with the postcards that contributors created. And a manifesting postcard is like a mini vision board. What do you want to bring into your life? You put it on your postcard. I photograph it, and when it becomes a reality in your life, I share the story. And so there's 30 of those stories in the book, and it's broken down into the main areas that we want to create more abundance in: love, in our health, in our careers, in our money, right? We can always ask. We always want more abundance. That's what gives us joy. That's what makes us happy. So I have a bunch of writing exercises, and I have fun manifesting games, and you could check that out. The book can be found on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and your favorite bookstore. And if they don't have it, all you have to do is ask them, and they will order it for you. So I wrote the book, I can't even believe it's coming up on 5 years already, and I decided that I wanted to start doing some live readings from the book. So I'm doing those on Instagram and TikTok, and I post them also on LinkedIn and YouTube, and they're short videos. I share one of the stories, I show the postcard, and I talk about it. So if you are on social media and you like them, please say hi, give me a like, share with your friends. That would be wonderful. So what I started doing is I started re-photographing the postcards that are in the book. And it's very different the way I'm photographing them now than I did them years ago before I put them in the book. So it's fun for me tapping into my creativity, redoing them, reworking them, spending time with them. So it's really opened things up for me personally, and I hope people are liking them. I share those each week, so you can check those out. On any of my social media, you'll see me be posting the postcards and a little snippet of the person's story. I'm always asking for people to send me a manifesting postcard, please do. If you have any questions, reach out. You can find out how to create one and where to send it on postcardstotheuniverse.com. And you could check out the workshop I'm doing on there too, which is called Manifesting Through Gratitude, a Visual Journey, where we're using gratitude and our camera phones to manifest. Okay, so let me bring out my guest, Purpose Aizenstat, Ph.D. He's devoted his life to understanding the profound wisdom and healing power that exists within each of us. Through our dreams and imaginations, we are able to access limitless creativity and innovation, improve relationships, and ultimately our human potential. In the Imagination Matrix, How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose, Aizenstat expands upon his world-renowned dream tending method to present a step-by-step process for unlocking your creative potential. Through guided exercises, meditative practices, dream work, and more, you'll discover how to dismantle the obstacles and mental habits that limit your ingenuity and problem-solving capacities, and reawaken your access to the field of consciousness that exists below, betwixt, and between the surface of everyday experiences that Aizenstat calls deep imagination. His method teaches us to align ourselves with the fundamental source of creativity. So even when we feel overwhelmed as individuals, we can allow a greater intelligence to animate and guide us. In doing so, we become more purposeful, resilient, and connected, and able to be the agents of change that our world needs. He's the founder of Pacifica Graduate Institute, Dream Tending, and the Academy of Imagination. For more than 35 years, he's explored the power of dreams through depth psychology. He's collaborated with Joseph Campbell, Marion Woodman, Robert Johnson, James Hillman, and Native elders worldwide. He conducts dream work and imagination seminars throughout the U.S., Europe, and Asia. So if you want to find out more about him, go to his website, dreamtending.com. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure. And I'll tell you, after listening to your introduction, I am going on to your social media. I cannot wait to participate.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, well, when I was introduced to your book, when your publicist sent it to me and I was looking at it and I was reading about you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm all about the creativity because that's what fuels my life and that's what brings me joy. And when I notice when I am not living in my creativity, that's when I find myself getting depressed or irritated or, because I'm not in that energy which feeds me. And that's how I work. But I love in your book that you don't have to be an artist. See, a lot of people think you have to be an artist to live an imaginative, creative life, and you don't. So I'm going to let you tell us about the work that you do and what the Imagination Matrix system is. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, I so agree with you. I mean, I've been not only a founder of these different organizations that you named, but also a teacher, a professor, a therapist for decades now. And one of the things that I've discovered is the same as you, that when creativity opens, right, when imagination opens, almost by definition, curiosity awakens. And when we're curious and get into our curious mind rather than only our rational mind, which of course is very important as well, but when we're in our curiosity, we aren't anxious. It's hard to be curious, if not impossible, authentically curious, and experience crippling anxiety, isolating depression, the afflictions that we all suffer in one way or the next. So opening curiosity, becoming part of an imaginal process, something different changes in life. The quality of life really, really takes on a different kind of experience. And so that's the advocacy behind the book. That's what really moved me. I've been working with dreams and dream work, and the book Dream Tending has been out for some time now, and I worked with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people worldwide working with Dream, which has been a big part of my life and my fascination and my consideration. The dreams yielded something in addition. They offered, in addition to associating the dream material to our personal life and to the collective stories of the collective unconscious, it's called in psychology, there's something else. They open portals to imagination. And when I talk about imagination, I don't mean an imagination that we can concoct or an imagination that is imposed on us. I mean an imagination that comes from the inside out, an imagination that has a life of its own autonomy, its own sense of deep belonging, truly, a living imagination. And when we participate in that, something different happens, just like you've noticed in your life with creativity. Something different, qualitatively different happens. We become more innovative. We become more creative. We become essentially more curious. And we also find something of tremendous value. We find our innate intelligence, our sense of genius. And also, as you shared, and I'll just pause after this, it's not that we need to be artists only. I mean, to be in our innate genius, in our imagination, brings us back into ways of being in the world. I mean, I work with people in engineering. I work with people that are founders of corporations. I work with parents, community activists, community members. I work with people in all different vocational aspects. And when we're working in whatever context and we're connected to an imaginal life, something different does open. It really flowers from the inside out.
Yeah, and in your book you talk about this too, about the sense of being curious, and how I believe that as children we're naturally curious, right? Children are just naturally curious. They're curious about everything. Why something is the way that it is, why it looks this way, why it sounds like this, why it tastes like this. And as we become adults, we tend to lose that sense of curiosity and that sense of wonder. And you talk a lot about rediscovering our curiosity. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, and just as you're sharing, to watch children, and now we have to really recalibrate, because children are naturally curious. They are. I mean, we're born with a blueprint already, not only genetically, but also a sense of calling from the beginning, actually. And curiosity allows us to follow that unique sense of calling, that authentic sense of calling. The Greeks call it entelechy. You know, it's something that we're born with, a yearning to move forward. And children, I mean, it's part of how they experience the world. It's necessary, really. Language formation, interaction with others, developing a way of being mobile in the world. I mean, curiosity is really an important ingredient. And two, particularly in the world of today, that gets programmed out rather quickly, right? First, there are the expectations of a family or a culture. And the expectation often has to do with achievement, with nothing wrong with that, but achievement at the expense of curiosity and the natural mind. That separates us from our unique capacities. And, of course, with so much social media now, for all of us, right, we begin to, get subsumed, really, in the programmer's code versus our own essential coding, our own sense of calling. So we have to be very conscious and careful with that.
Yes, and you share a little bit some exercises for us adults who get so wrapped up in our, like you even mentioned, some of us work 60, 80 hours a week, right? We're just constantly work. So how would somebody who is listening right now thinks, well, I kind of know what I have to do every day. How do I get curious? How do I become curious again about what I do every single day of my life?
Okay, well, let me share a really short little story. I just got back from China. Okay, in China, I was presenting to a huge audience because in China, everything is bigger in a way, where a conference here might be 50 to 100 to 300 people. In China, it's 2,000, 3,000 people,
Wow.
and another 10,000 online. So I'm in front of this, big group of people talking, and their struggle is the same as our struggle in this context. Things are programmed, even a little more programmed, actually, there in that culture than in our culture at the moment. So I offered an exercise, and I offer everybody that's listening this very simple exercise, right? And it's seen with soft eyes or focused eyes. I mean, that's what the exercise is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so you simply, the easy part of doing this is you bring your 2 forefingers in front of your eyes, and you bring focus. And then you look around with focus between those 2 fingers. You have a lens of perception looking through the 2 fingers. Then you move from there to peripheral vision, which means you separate your fingers out. Just very easy, very simple. And then with wider vision, peripheral vision, you look around again. If you go back and forth with that for just 3 or 4 times, and then walk into your day, whether you're on a city street or on a trail in the mountains, right? It doesn't matter. Or in your home place, wherever that might be. Soft eyes, peripheral, and then focused eyes. And it's extraordinary what happens because curiosity begins to awaken. You get curious. You're starting to see differently. And when we see differently, we all of a sudden, instead of just thinking through what is the agenda for the day, what's the next set of obligations that I have to fulfill, right? Or where am I focused, so focused and determined? Okay, that's that one mode. Nothing wrong with that. We need that mode. And 2, when we include the peripheral way of seeing, peripheral vision, something different happens. We're taking in the full landscape. So there's nothing complicated about this at all. And 2, the beauty of that very simple exercise is it opens curiosity. We are no longer in a fixed pattern, right? We're shuttling between 2 ways of seeing, and those 2 ways of seeing open up 3rd, 4th, 5th way of experiencing the world. So I'm in China. I'm in front of all these people, and I offer this small exercise, right, as I just shared with you. All of a sudden, the whole room is focused, the 2 fingers close, peripheral, the 2 fingers widen, and we see with wider vision. Curiously, here's what I found very touching, heartfelt, really. So I was there in the conference for the next, 4 or 5 days. I was doing keynote speeches and workshops, mostly on dreams in China. And every time people saw me, the greeting was with those 2 fingers, soft eyes, open, focused eyes, soft eyes, focused eyes. And it really evoked a sense of play. And just as you're sharing at the beginning, child's play, not childlessness, that's different, but child's play, that natural awakening of curiosity, that innate, push towards imagination.
Yeah, and I want to talk about our imagination. I am a big use of my imagination. I always have been, ever since I was a kid. Of course, I was a kid before social media and before the internet. So, I get a little concerned about the generation now who's completely technologically, their whole life is on technology, which wasn't my experience nor your experience growing up. So you talk about us using our deep imagination, and you call it journeying in the realm of deep imagination, or the dig. So you want to talk a little bit about that. For me, it's something that comes naturally because I've been doing it since I was a kid, right? So for me, it's not difficult. Some people may find it more difficult. What is the dig?
Yeah, okay. Well, that is now for me a life praxis that I bring myself to every morning. You do too in your artwork, it sounds like. And many people have their own version. So the dig is the name that I use, but when I'm working with people, and I'm having workshops all the time on this, where people come together and we support each other in the bigger community, the dig is the capacity to journey. And, because I work with dreams a lot, so I work with that formulation of imagination. But dreams have more to share with us than a commentary on the day. Very helpful, that is, or on our past history. or how our past history is affecting our behavior in the day. Dreams are very useful that way. And as I said earlier, they also contain teaching stories, so the collective psyche, and there's mythic motifs and archetypal patterns that are present in dreams, which are informing. But then there's something else. There's a portal into the next evolution of imagination, and that's the dig, right? So in a dream, inevitably, invariably, we'll meet figures, right? And sometimes they're not pictures. Not everybody has picture images. They're felt sense, right? Or there is emotional response. But something's moving forward in dream activity. And in that, we can find different portals, which means that we get to know the characters, the figures, in dream time and or in imaginal time, and then we follow them. We literally follow those figures into the realms of imagination, and that's where I'm naming deep imagination. An imagination, as I said earlier, with a life of its own. It's autonomous, right? It has its own intelligence. I name that imaginal intelligence, and we can participate in that. The biggest hurdle, the hardest part, and yet once we get going, it becomes the most valuable thing that I think I can do personally, or what I share with others, is that when I'm journeying in that way, in those realms of the psyche, in those realms of imagination, I am not the leader. It's not an I, person-oriented journey. I am connected with a variety of companions. In the book Imagination Matrix, I name them soul companions. I get to know them. I develop relationships with them. And then when we're journeying together, they're taking the lead. I'm one of the many figures, right? It's an entourage that's going on this particular journey. And just let me mention, I don't want to romanticize or idealize. I've just been a therapist way too long, and a teacher and a parent and a human for all my life, obviously. And, you know, life is hard at times. I mean, it is. There's times of trauma, great upset, addictions come in. I mean, one thing after the next. So it's not to romanticize. These soul companions that I'm talking about are figures that some are very supportive and caring and protective. When we think of people that have been, I don't know, our mentors or some of the elders that we've grown up with that have really been special to us, protective, supportive, a best friend that's been unconditionally supportive, always has our back. Those are the supportive companions. And then, too, you know, there's those figures that are difficult, sometimes intolerable even, horrific, nightmarish. And those figures we need to work with. Because when we work with those figures, right, and we see what's behind the mask, so to speak, you know, what generative spark is in the most frightening of figures, when we can really discern that, then together, the supportive soul companions, the shadow-like soul companions, together we can journey in the imaginal realms. And oh my goodness, you know, just as I'm talking, I feel it through me. You can feel the curiosity begin to bubble up. You can feel the enthusiasm, right? I'm now in imaginal realms. I'm like in child's play at that point. And I'm being introduced to all kinds of places and spaces and landscapes that otherwise I wouldn't be as conscious of.
No, it's so perfect that you're on my show right now, because can I share something? I'm sharing
I'd
this
love
for
to
the
hear,
first time.
yes.
Okay. So I've always had a hard time meditating, in the sense of being a quiet mind where everything goes blank. That is never worked for me well. Anytime that I do, what usually happens is I never called it journeying, but what would happen is I would journey. That's how it works for me. So a visualization would happen, and I would go into a story. So recently, and this has only been in the last couple of weeks, every morning when I'm doing my little, 10, 20-minute thing, a new story has appeared. And I've been going to a forest because I'm dying to forest bathe in a forest, because I live in South Florida with palm trees and heat, and I'm like wanting to be in the forest. So I'm forest bathing in my imagination. And I go there, and I have met recently a companion who's come forward, and it's a dragon. And realizing that this is the year of the dragon, and I never associated it, just kind of dawned on me. I went, oh, this is the year of the dragon. And everything that I've been doing in my own work is I've been focusing on gratitude, 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 gratitude. So my dragon's name is gratefulness. And now he has a form. And I see him every day. And it has been so powerful. I cannot even explain it, how powerful it's been. Like, I now have a physical form in my gratefulness that I can go to in this beautiful, serene place. And other things are happening there too. But it's just been like, it's only been the last couple of weeks. And it's been like so healing inside for me. It's just amazing. So just talking about this with you, and then you just happen to be on my show today. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no coincidences.
I hear you.
So I love that.
Oh, yes, and just that. You know, you're in your version of the dig, which is not a dig for you, but you're in your version. You're journeying in that forest, and you're meeting figures. There's that soul companion dragon, gratitude, right? Present now. And the curious thing you said about meditation is that I thought, well, what the heck? Let's try this out, because now we have all, you know, scientifically and neurophysiologically, we have lots of research now, and we have lots of ways of measuring brainwave activity and so on and so forth. So what about meditation, the quiet mind? And how does that, you know, compare to the more imaginally active mind? So we did, you know, we have two research studies going now, one qualitative, one quantitative. In other words, one is more scientific in terms of numbers and measurement, and the other is personal sharing of, you know, what their direct experience are. And what is amazing is that when we're in that place, like walking through that forest, and we're in the story web of imagination, and the figures come out, and we begin to interact, and gratitude comes forward, as well as our heart opens, you know. Actually, theta brainwaves increase. So that active imagining mind is as effective, if not more effective, than increasing not only imagination, but breath and creativity and well-being. You know, you notice how our body calms when we're in that place? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I believe you, because it feels that way to me. So I trust the process. I'm trusting it. Like, I'm saying, it's okay. This is what is working for me, because I know how I feel, and I go by how I feel. So let's pause here. I just looked at the clock. It's like at a half-hour mark already. So let's take our break. And then when we come back, we'll talk more about all of this. This is so interesting. Thank you. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Everyone has a story. I have a story. You have a story. We all have a story. As I see it, you have three choices. Allow your story to define you, use it to excuse you, or utilize it as a method to empower you. It's your life. You have the power. You choose. Rewrite your story on finduniquelyu.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Hey everybody, welcome back. So if you're just joining me, I have author Purpose Aizenstat with me, and we're talking a lot from his book, The Imagination Matrix, How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. So, Stephen, before the break, we were talking about going into the realms of deep imagination, into the dig. And for anybody listening who, like you said, it doesn't have to be pictures. I'm a visual artist, so for me, it's visual things come, and sometimes I have to, I tell myself in my journeying to stop and what does it smell like? What does it feel like? Because for me, my go-to is visual, right? It's the images. So for people who are like having a hard time to do that, what would you recommend they do?
Well, I think that's exactly right. Actually, our senses, taste, touch, smell, so helpful. Here, when an image comes, let's imagine the image comes in a dream of the night or a waking dream. It's a sensation. Doesn't necessarily need to be a picture image.
Right.
The sensation comes, and then we, instead of just analyzing or interpreting or trying to figure it out, we allow it to take form. It embodies, right? And one of the ways it can embody is to personify, to bring it out in front of us, from inside to outside. And then look about, what landscape are we on? What does it taste like? What does it smell? I mean, honestly, if you have an image at all of a sea setting, an ocean setting, or a forest setting, just as we were describing before the break, if we're in that forest and then use our noses and go and get a scent, oh my goodness, you cannot smell something and not be in full presence. You're in, at that moment, in a witnessing presence, and the form begins to animate, illuminates, really, comes to life. And you were mentioning the figure that you had met, dragon, here now, right? Of gratitude, present now. Then when we take in the breath of that forest area, we feel the land underneath our feet. We even touch a tree, maybe even a little bit of the dragon if it's safe, right? Something different happens. We are then part of it. We are present. Then something else occurs, which is the wonder of the whole thing.
Yes.
Because with permission, we can say to dragon, just look at dragon's eyes. Is dragon willing to receive you? Now, we're not looking for the answer. That's our ego mind. That's our first thing that we're trained to do. Rather, we're just present and looking to see if receptivity is possible. 9 times out of 10, with safety and protection, it may be. And then get curious. Follow dragon. Let dragon take the lead. Where does dragon take us? And who does dragon introduce us to? And before we know it, now we're surrounded with a number of figures, and the story begins to unfold.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. And that's what, every time I go in every morning, something else is presented. And it's been really interesting, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. And I notice that I feel after I come out of it, it sort of sets the whole day for me. Like I've connected, I feel like I've grounded, into the earth somehow, because where I'm at in the forest and the leaves and the smell and I can smell the earth, and it reminds me of Mother Nature and all of that. So let's talk about that, because you talk a lot in the book about using something you call the 4 quadrants of the imagination matrix. And you go over them in all the different chapters in each part what you're talking about. So can you tell us what you mean by the 4 quadrants and how we can utilize that in our life in the imagination matrix?
Yeah, and let's keep it simple because it is essentially very simple. Yeah. It's complex and simple. So in the book I go in great detail. But just as you described, right, 4 quadrants. One of the quadrants has to do with Earth, right, with the generative quality of Gaia, in using the mythic term, right, just that sense, the regenerativity of Earth. The second has to do with story and mind and imagery, and really being present to and available to the figures that present themselves. That kind of mind, not only the rational mind, but the curious mind, the animated mind, the imaginal mind. And the third quadrant has to do with machine. And what I mean by machine is not necessarily machine. It certainly includes the new technologies, and it includes machines that we've been part of for thousands of years, right? Also includes this body, the functionality of this body as a machine, because the work that we do in imagination has such implication for us emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and too physiologically. So I work with a lot of people that are suffering from physical affliction of one sort or the next. Honestly, it's called complementary medicine, integrative medicine now. But one of the real beauties of this kind of work is it has such powerful impact on our physiology, regardless of the disease syndrome that we are challenged with. So the third quadrant has to do with functionality, how things work, how things are fluid, where things are blocked, how that moves, right? The energetics of the whole thing. And the fourth quadrant is what we mentioned. It's something that is of the other, transcendent. You know, everybody has a different name. Some people will use spirituality. Other people will use this sense of cosmos, cosmic consciousness. There's all kinds of universal consciousness. It's that which is transcendent. And those quadrants come alive when we're in imagination, particularly if we allow ourselves to bring attention and mindfulness and open our modes of perception to appreciating their existence, their presence. They are interrelated and interactive, so they're not standalones, but they touch into one another. And in the book, for sure, I show people how when we're living in imagination and we begin to bring awareness to the quadrants that are available and notice how they interact at the places of interactivity, where they touch one another. That's what I call confluence. There's a place of confluence, and those are portals that offer themselves to really what Joseph Campbell used to say, right? The outer reaches of inner space, and he got that from somebody else who got that from somebody else. But I really enjoyed my studying with Joseph because you really begin to move into dimensions of consciousness and mythic awareness that are really quite revelatory. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and you share in the book, you go into great depth in the book, so anybody listening who highly recommend you read it, and he really explains it in a way that you can understand, it, and with examples of things and practices to do. So even if you say you have 10 minutes, let's say you only have 10 minutes in the morning to do this, you talk about how we can utilize the 4 quadrants in just going for a walk. Let's say we have 10 minutes to take a little brisk walk outside or something. So it's not something that you have to study for years and get to a level of practice before you can even tap into it. Just a few minutes a day can help you start to shift your focus, correct?
Oh, so correct. And I'm by nature, I've been a teacher all my life, so not to make it esoteric or abstract or overly scientized, right? That is not what I'm up to in this book in particular. That I save that for academic lectures and all that kind of stuff. No, this is an offering to people. And every concept comes, just like you said, with very particular exercises that are simple to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with examples from my own life personally or others that I've been privileged to be part of. So yeah, you can find all the things that one needs to do. Actually, what I'm doing now goes right to what we're talking about. I'm working with 1 to 5-year-olds. So this is preschool. Oh, I know, right? And it's so precious. It is. And the initiative is to bring into daycare with care providers the capacity to sustain imagination. I mean, kids already come in at that age with imagination, but like we shared very early in the program, that, they're being, kind of pushed out of that. They are being literally programmed out of that by so much. And now AI is coming. It's one thing after the next, right? So how is it that a caregiver can really sustain, support, offer, possibilities for little ones, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, to keep their imagination alive and vital? They can move into story time in ways that are, just quite extraordinary. So yeah, it's not to create this overly abstract is to miss the idea that we are born with the capacity from the beginning to be naturally imaginative and creative.
Yeah. I love that you're doing that with the little ones. I swear, courses like this should be in schools. They should be in elementary, middle, and high school. They really should. It teaches you how to go within, and I also believe this could, I had a guest when we were talking about resolving conflict without violence last week, and I really think something like this could also be utilized in that, especially with kids and bullying and all that kind of stuff. It's like the potential is just amazing of where this work could expand to, right? If we utilize it. So I love hearing that it's going into to the schools. That's great. That's wonderful.
Right. And then I for 5 years of my professional life I taught junior high school, middle school, and now that goes into not bullying only on campus, but it goes into bullying, cyberbullying, and online, So now it's a new phenomenon. So really to tap in really is in service of supporting a different way of being in relationship to one another when you're in your, early to later teens at that age group. And also in partnerships, in marriage and partnerships, right? It is very different. Like what you were sharing, when I wake up in the morning and I'm in praxis like this, and it's not like 3 hours, right? It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Each of us makes it our own. But when the day starts that way for me, who I bring to my professional work, to my marriage, to my family, it's a different Steve. It's a different person. Because I'm not in it alone. And let's just spend one moment there. I'm not in it alone. I am now present with the figures, those soul companions, the inner community of figures. We know that we need a external community for the most part to really prosper. We need to be in community relationship with folks, even when we take alone time for a month, even 3 months for some people. But still, community is so vital. The same is true in the worlds, behind the worlds, between the worlds, betwixt the worlds, in the inner worlds, right? We need that inner community as well, because then we have a home place, a place of belonging, and we're in it with the other members of our story. And that really is the difference that makes all the difference, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought something was interesting. When I first read your book, we just touched on with the quadrants with the machine, and I love that you said that the machine is also our bodies, because at first I was like, well, what does he mean by the machine? And then I found out, obviously. But can you share a little bit, because I get a lot of people writing to me, and I like to I have a lot of healers on my show. We talk about companion healing, alternative healing technologies, and all this stuff. So can you share a little bit of a story of somebody who utilized what your teachings are for a health situation that they were going through and how that benefited them?
Yeah, for sure. So as a way of background, out of this work, I've started with my colleague, Robbie Bosnack, what's called healing sanctuaries. So these are people that are really suffering from, physical pain, distress, disease, illness. And when they come into this sanctuary, sanctuary is such a big word, so when they come into this facility, this place that we create, then there's something different that happens. So let's give a concrete example. I'm going to change the name, but we'll name Rita. And Rita comes in, and she is hurting. She is suffering. I mean, there is arthritis that is crippling, really, and it's getting worse and worse. It's neck to shoulder, and, her life has been very active. Yet in the last year, she started to feel it, coming on, and then next year happens, it's getting worse. Rheumatoid arthritis takes an incredible toll, and she was hurting. And so complementary medicine or integrative medicine is in combination with very, significant and useful medical care. So I don't want to separate the two. And 20 years ago, it was difficult to talk about imagination and medicine. Physicians were all against it, thinking it was going to sabotage the medical treatment protocols and like that. And there's a completely different, now, for the most part, in most sectors, a different attitude, because people are really seeing the benefits of combining the two. So here comes Rita. She's got that real pain, right? And she's tried, worked with physical therapist type folks that are trained effectively, medical physicians, really well trained, doing all those kinds of things, and still the pain is getting worse. And then we go into this form, into working with imagination, to combine that with their really well-conceived medical care. From the first quadrant, right? Rita, oh my goodness, from Earth. And I'll never forget, she had a garden, and she loved her garden, right? And she just felt when she was in the garden there was something special happening. So I suggested, hey, take some of that earth that is generative in and of itself, that you have such a high regard for, that already has healing properties. She did. And the story of the garden, I mean, what brings you there? What are you telling yourself, and how are you in relation to the garden? She does. She wrote a little poem and a story about the garden as if it was a living part of her life, and it was, truly. I mean, at her home place, in the pain that she was in, that was her retreat space. So that garden had a story to tell, right? And then the mobility. She was hurting. And, of course, you water a garden, of course. But when her hurt would come, tears would also come, because she was really losing the capacity to be in relationship with herself, with her family. It was heartbreaking, honestly. So tears would come. So we took a little of those tears, a little of that water. Now we have a little earth. We have a story that she wrote on a piece of paper. We have some water from the tears, that quadrant. And then in this instance, when I talk about the universe or the cosmic consciousness like that, what it is here is intentionality. If you believe, if you really set an intention for yourself that what I'm about to do is really going to support and help my health, that intention becomes really medicinal, really important. Right now it's time to make the medicine, the Imaginal medicine. So we had her take the earth, we had her put that earth on the piece of paper that the poem was written on. Some of the tears we put into the earth, and we kind of combined that, into a substance. And then we had her rub that right on her neck, along her shoulder, because you have to have a praxis, right? And every time she ingested medicines from the physician, she would first do the medical care and then complement that, I should say, with this treatment that she was doing. Warm her hands, just by rubbing them with one another, that brought a kind of warmth to it, and then put some of that onto her neck and onto her shoulder. Now, here's what happened. A week later, she started to feel relief. Right? 2 weeks later, she started to recover a certain kind of mobility. And 3 or 4 weeks later, she really, you could see the joy come back into her life, right? Not only with the relief from the pain, but just the capacity to be back into family life and back into herself. It was remarkable, right? And is it a placebo? Some people could say, it's a placebo, right? But a placebo is not necessarily false. A placebo can be something that is created and generated through and from and out of imagination that has incredible capacity and potency. That's
and
why
there's
when we
science behind it now. If you follow Joe Dispenza, there's science coming behind it. So is it really a placebo, or are we talking to ourselves and changing things, right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's so interesting. Yeah, I love that. I'm all about that. And, obviously nobody's saying you should stop seeing your doctor and, any of that kind of stuff. Just adding this to your health protocol, is a wonderful thing to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why it's called complementary, right?
Yeah.
In addition to, yeah. However, I have to say, just as you shared, not only is there science behind it, there's a whole body of science behind it now.
Right.
But it's the potency of the imagination is quite extraordinary. It really, if nothing more, honestly, now speaking out of my therapist self, if nothing more, just when my quality of life shifts, and I don't feel victimized by the illness, but I'm interactive with, and I have something that I'm doing that is in support of myself, my imagination, dare I say, my soul life, things change. My attitude changes. I move from feeling caught by, crippled by, possessed by, into a different kind of relationship. And truly, our breath deepens and our quality of life changes.
Yes, and exactly. And I say it in a way of when we shift, we raise our vibration. And when we raise our vibration, we match those frequencies of those things we want to bring into our life at that vibration that we're at. So if we're low, we're gonna bring in more things that are a vibrational match to that. But when we raise it, we're gonna bring in more things that are a vibrational match to that. So it's interesting. It's really. I love this stuff, as you can tell. This is like my language.
Yes,
so I love it. So I want to talk a little bit because we only have like 5 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about imaginal intelligence, and I love the chapter on imaginal intelligence. So what is that?
Yeah. So what we've discovered, and we've had the conversation all the way up to this moment, that when we access imagination, when we really put ourselves into that place of the dragon in the forest or in whatever version we have of the dig, we are now participating in imagination. And what happens is our imaginal intelligence increases. Now, we know about intellectual intelligence. We know about emotional intelligence, right? There's a lot of different kinds. We know about artificial intelligence, all kinds of different intelligence. There's also imaginal intelligence that we can actually literally measure now. To the extent that we live in imagination, that imaginal intelligence increases. I call it IQ4 just because I like to put the quadrants in there. To the extent that our imaginal intelligence increases, there is a direct correlation to quality of life, to well-being, to, as I said earlier, psychological, physical, emotional well-being. It's extraordinary as imaginal intelligence grows and evolves. And children, of course, are born with a very high IQ in imaginal intelligence. Then it dims, but to return to that place really opens wonder, is what it opens. It opens a sense of wonder and awe in the world, as if the world itself has an imagination, which I think it does.
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, we know, so with, from whatever's going on within will end up showing in the world, right? So absolutely, this is a universal concept. So the more of us that practice this, we are going to naturally influence those around us, right? And it shifts everything. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and maybe taking the last 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, please.
What I've noticed is that when imaginal intelligence increases, there's something else that happens. And what happens is that which is innate to each of us, our own genius, begins to come forward and feel supported. And it doesn't mean we're going to be Einstein, right? It's not that. It just means that who we were authentically, that sense of calling that we spoke about very early on, that innate genius has an opportunity to blossom, to come forward, to really begin to lead the way, to be part of our kind of inner compass. And that is remarkable, to be connected to our true desire, our true yearning, and to then be responsive to that in the world is, it just changes the way of being in the world.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And that's why I love doing my shows so much, and I love learning new things. And this is the first time, not that I don't know what the concept is, but I never heard the word imaginal intelligence before I met you and read your book. So I love that I have something new to add to my little toolbox of magic, as I like to call it, in my thing. So I love that. So, Stephen, are there YouTube videos that people can watch your seminars or follow you? I mean, you can get the book on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and the major the book dealers. But if people want to learn more and listen to more of your talks, how can they do that?
Yeah, and there are multiple ways of doing that. The easiest way to do this is simply go to dreamtending.com, dreamtending.com. And then there's a listing of the workshops that I offer, and there are videos that you can be part of. I do a Tending Tuesday piece that you can get involved with, which is simply a free offering to people. So each week I'll do something there. There's all kinds of ways of getting involved and engaged. And it's so helpful, like the community that you're part of and that you're generating around your work. It's so beautiful, isn't it, to be part of a community of not like-minded others, but people that are open-hearted and sensitive to others. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, everyone. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.